Imagine waking up one day and discovering that your phone, your laptop, your private conversations, your family photos, your bank details, the government has secretly monitored everything for years. Now imagine the man who built that surveillance system decides to expose it. That's the terrifying world of Patriot, a political action thriller starring Mammootty, Mohanlal, Fahadh Faasil, and Kunchacko Boban. But here's the real twist. This is not just an action movie. It's a film about surveillance, corruption, psychological warfare, digital slavery, and how power destroys morality. Today, we break down the complete story of Patriot, ending explained, hidden details, character motivations, and whether Daniel James was actually a patriot or a traitor. Before we begin, hit like if you enjoy deep movie breakdowns, subscribe for more Malayalam and Indian cinema analysis, and comment below. Would you sacrifice national security to protect public privacy? The movie opens with something disturbing. Ordinary citizens are interviewed after becoming victims of a spyware program called Periscope. This software was supposedly created for national security, but instead of targeting terrorists or enemies, it's being used against innocent civilians, politicians, students, activists, families. Even worse, one official says, "Only people with something to hide demand privacy." That single line defines the entire film, because Patriot asks a dangerous question. When governments gain unlimited surveillance power, who watches them? Mammootty plays Dr. Daniel James, a Defense Research Wing scientist. And this character is fascinating because he isn't innocent. He helped create Periscope. Initially, he believed it would protect the nation. Classic mistake. Every surveillance system in history starts with the promise of security. Then, power corrupts it. Daniel discovers that Minister JPS secretly transferred control of Periscope to his son's private company, Shakti Solutions. That changes everything. Because now surveillance is no longer about national defense. It becomes a business, a machine that profits from blackmail, manipulation, and data exploitation. And when Minister Nalini threatens to expose the truth, she suddenly dies after surgery. At that moment, Daniel realizes this conspiracy goes far deeper than spyware. Fahadh Faasil absolutely steals scenes as Shakti Sundaram. This is not a loud villain. That's what makes him dangerous. He's calm, smart, emotionally detached. He treats human beings like data points. And the scariest part? He genuinely believes he's doing the right thing. Shakti represents modern techno-authoritarianism, a world where corporations and governments merge into one surveillance empire. He doesn't need guns to control people. He controls information, loans, devices, apps, social media, spyware. Even a teenage girl named Athira becomes a victim after government laptops secretly monitor users through Periscope. This subplot is one of the darkest parts of the film because it shows how technology destroys ordinary lives. Daniel escapes India and becomes an online whistleblower called Vimathan, meaning dissident. This section feels heavily inspired by real-world figures like Edward Snowden and Julian Assange. He leaks the list of all surveillance victims online. Suddenly, the government brands him a criminal. But the film cleverly keeps asking, is Daniel exposing corruption or betraying national security? That moral ambiguity is what makes Patriot stronger than typical action thrillers. There are no pure heroes here. Daniel created the weapon. JPS abused it. Shakti commercialized it. Everyone shares guilt. When Mohanlal enters as Colonel Rahim Nayak, the emotional core of the movie changes completely. Rahim is broken, forgotten, disgraced by the system, but he remains loyal to Daniel. Unlike the politicians and corporations, Rahim represents old-school honor and sacrifice. His Morse code communication scenes are brilliant. No flashy heroism, no mass slow motion, just intelligence, discipline, and pain. And honestly, Rahim's death is probably the emotional peak of the movie, because the system destroys its most loyal soldiers first. The airport sequence is pure paranoia thriller cinema. Daniel is poisoned using the VX nerve agent after two women distract him. This scene works because it feels realistic. No dramatic villain speech, no over-the-top action. Just a silent assassination through chemistry and manipulation. The reveal that Daniel intentionally carried antidote medicine proves something important. He knew they would eventually try to kill him. At this point, Patriot stops being a political thriller. It becomes survival warfare. The climax is chaos. Public protests erupt. Servers are hacked. Evidence is leaked. Political power collapses. But the strongest twist comes when Shakti reveals that his own father engineered a cockpit fire incident to gain political sympathy. That revelation destroys the final illusion of patriotism. Everything was manipulation. Even nationalism itself became a marketing tool. JPS eventually kills himself, and Daniel uses VX against Shakti, the same kind of weapon used against him. That's intentional irony. Daniel wins, but morally, he becomes part of the same cycle of violence. The final scene is powerful. Daniel is invited back into the government system. And then comes the line, "Are you the great Indian traitor or great Indian patriot?" That question is the entire movie. Because patriotism in Patriot is not blind loyalty to the state. It's loyalty to truth. The film argues that governments are temporary, but citizens' freedoms are permanent. And if protecting your country requires destroying democracy and privacy, then maybe that isn't patriotism anymore. Now, let's talk honestly about the film itself. What worked? Incredible performances from the ensemble cast. Strong political themes. Realistic cyber surveillance concepts. Mature writing. Atmospheric tension. Mohanlal's emotional scenes. Fahadh Faasil's chilling performance. What didn't work? The film is overloaded with information. Some exposition scenes feel too long. The pacing dips in the middle. A few twists become predictable. The climax gets slightly too convenient. This is not a mass entertainer. It's a dense, political techno-thriller. Some audiences will love that. Others will find it exhausting. Patriot is ambitious, intelligent, disturbing, and flawed. But even with its imperfections, it's one of the boldest Malayalam thrillers in recent years because it forces audiences to confront uncomfortable realities about surveillance and power. And honestly, that conversation matters more now than ever. So what do you think? Was Daniel James a patriot or a traitor? And would you trade your privacy for national security? Comment below. I genuinely want to know your take. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into Malayalam cinema, hidden details, and ending explained videos. See you in the next one.